So here on the top of Chaf Hey Amid Beis, the Gemara establishes that Chalav Bisman Hazeh is only D'Rabbanan because it says Bevachim in plural, and we need Kol Yisrael Shruyim Al Admasa for a Chiyav Chalav. But Truma doesn't require Bias Kulchem. All it requires is Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, Kedushas Karka of Eretz Yisrael. Toshma, another possible source to conclude that Ma'alim Minasiyas Kapayim Liyuchsin. The Brisa says Chazaka LeKahuna. How do the Kohanim establish a Cheskas Kahuna? Number one, Nesiyas Kapayim. Number two, Chilek Rodos. Number three, Eidos. So if they were no Siyas Kapayim, or if they received Truma in the granaries and the gronos, or the Eidos. Two Eidim testify that we know that he's a Kohen. Now, the opening line in this brisa contradicts the last line in the brisa. The only line in the brisa says Chazaka Lakuna, that because he has a Chazaka, that's why we establish him as a Kohen. But then he says Eidus. I mean, Eidus doesn't require Chazaka. Eidus is believed without Chazak. We don't need Chazak. So if we have two Eidus, Maximum as a Kohen Kosher, then Eidus Chazaka. Is Eidus to be considered a Chazaka? How can the Tana consider Eidus as Chazaka? The name Chazaka is totally inappropriate for Eidus. Elolav Hochikaran is Siyas Kapayim Ki Eidus. The meaning of the Bryce is not that Eidim create a Cheskes Kahuna. That would be irrelevant to this price. So we're talking about Chazaka Lakuna through Nesiyas Kapayim or through Chilek Ronos. Now we're going to equate Nesiyas Kapayim to Eidus. And that's the reason why Eidus is mentioned here in this price. Ma Eidus liyufsin, af Nesiyas Kapayim liyufsin. So the word Eidus here in this price of Cheskas Kahuna is only added in order to shed a light on the Nesiyas Kapayim. To say that just like Eidus can establish the status of a Kohen as a Kohen Yuchas, so too Nesiyas Kapayim could establish the status and the identity of the Kohen. Elav Hochikam, Nesiyas Kapayim ki Eidus, etc. Lo, the Gemara rejects it. The Eidus haba mikoach chazaka kechazaka. There is a case of Eidim who are testifying about a Kohen, and they establish a chazaka. And now the Gemara is going to try to figure out what that case is. Kiahu dia asal kami derav Ami. And he wanted to testify about someone that he's a Kohen. Amalei. Not sure who's talking here. 1 second. Amar Le. Is the Kohen himself is talking? Oh, yeah. My mistake. He's not testifying about himself. He has no nemonis for himself. He's testifying about somebody else. And what does he tell Rabbi Ami? Muchsakani Bazek. I can tell you about this guy, Shehu Kohen. Amar Le. Rabbi Ami responds to him, Mara Isa, how did you know he's a Kohen? He says to Rabbi Ami because he got Kohen without having to pay for it in the shul. Shekar Rishon Beis HaKnesses. So Rabbi Ami says, how do you know he's a Kohen? Just because he got the first Aliyah. And now we have to learn a Gemara Gittin on Dafnun test. The Gemara says, Kohen Kori Rishon B'Yaakov Levi B'Yaakov Yisrael B'nei Darkei Shalom. So the question is there a proof that he's Muchzak Lakuna by the fact that he got the first Aliyah? Oh, B'Cheskas Shu Gadol. Maybe there were no Kohanim around, and who gets the first Aliyah in the absence of a Kohen? We give it to the Gadol Shebachabura. the greatest scholar in that group. So let's say there's no Kohanim in the shul. So who do we give the first aliyah to? The gadol. So maybe the fact that this individual was called up first, it's not because he's a Kohen. There were no Kohanim. He's not a Kohen, but because he was the gadol. And this individual who's coming to testify about a friend of his, he's a Kohen, he answers, he responds to Rabbi Ami, Korah Achrav Levi. The very fact that afterwards they called a Levi, that proves that the one before that was a Kohen, because if there was no Kohen in Shul like you want to present it, and the Gemara says over there in Masechet Gittin Tesavet Beis, Ein Sham Kohen Nisparda Chavila. If there's no Kohen, we're not going to count. We're not going to call up a Levi, because if we call up a Levi, they're going to say that the one who read before him must have been a Kohen. Hello, Rabbi Ami Lakun Alpiv, and based on this Avos of Eid Echad, he was given a Cheskas Kahuna. Ahudi also Lakami Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Amalei said to Rabbi Shmuel Muksakani Baseshu Levi, I know that this guy over here is a Levi, and therefore we could give him Maser Levi. Amalei, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi responded, Mara Isa. What did you see that you can now testify that he's Muksak a Kohen? Amalei Shekar Beis HaKnesses. Oh, Shekar Shady Beis HaKnesses. We're talking about a Levi, sorry. So the Gemara again asks, Becheskeshu Levi. How do you know this proves he's a Levi? Oh, Becheskeshu Gadol. Maybe there was no one who was a Levi in the audience, so they called him up as a Gadol. And the Gemara answers, this is Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi's answer, Korah b'lefanav Kohen. We know he's a Levi by virtue of the fact that the one before him was a Kohen. And after Kohen, we call a Levi. Now, what happens if we call a Kohen and there is no Levi? Who's going to read after the Kohen? So the same Kohen that got Kohen, if there's no Levi, will be called up for the second Aliyah. So if they called up this guy, he must be a Levi, because if he's not a Levi, they would have given the Kohen the second Aliyah. Hello, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Levi Alpid. Hahudi also Lakami Reish Lakish. Amalei tells Reish Lakish books Lakani, but I know about this fellow. He's a Kohen. Amalei Mara Isa would just see Amalei Jakara Rishon beBeis HaKnesses. They called him up for the first Aliyah. Amalei Reisiv Shechilek Alagronos. Did they give him Truma? If you didn't see that they gave him Truma, that's a reusa that he's not really a Kohen Kosher. Amalei Rabbi Lazar. It was good 5 minutes ago. All right. Amalei Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar's returned to Reish Lakish, and he says, V'im ein sham goren. You're going to hold it against him that he didn't collect Truma, but maybe there is no goren. Nobody in that area planted a field. So we can't test them as to whether or not they gave him Truma. They didn't give him Truma. There was no Truma to be had. And there's no Bezdin that could give him a Cheskas Kahuna based on the fact that he was Nosias Kappa, his Butler Kahuna. Imagine the following scenario. You have no Bezdin Kavua, you have no Gronos, and he gets Rishon beBeis HaKnesses. You can say, no. He's not Mukslik as a Kohen because he didn't get Gronos. There are no Gronos. And there's no Bezdin Kavua to establish he's a Kohen Kosher. So now Butler Kahuna. Now the Gemara is going to get into details about exactly what went on over here. Zimnin Haviyasve Kamid Rabbi Yochanan. It was on one of those occasions that the Talmidim were sitting together with their Rebbe Rabbi Yochanan. And this is what happened. A person came to testify about his friend that he got an aliyah of Kohen, first aliyah in the Beis HaKnesses, and they wanted to establish him as a Kohen. Amalei Reish Lakish Risi Shachilak Al Goren. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan V'im Ein Sham Goren Batla Kahuna, which is exactly what Rabbi Elazar had said to him before. Rabbi Elazar was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan, but it was really Rabbi Yochanan who said it, and Rabbi Elazar heard it from Rabbi Yochanan. Chazei Hadar, Chazei Rabbi Elazar Bishus. So Reish Lakish turns around, he gives a frown, a sour face to Rabbi Elazar. And he says, Omar, I don't understand. Reish Lakish turning to Rabbi Elazar. Shamat mili de bar nafcha v'lo amartli b'shmei. You heard it directly from Rabbi Yochanan, like the son of the Nafcha. And you didn't tell me it in his name? I would have paskin halacha like Rabbi Yochanan. I would have been machzik as a kuna, even in this very thin evidence, because he had the first aliyah. But you didn't tell me about Rabbi Yochanan, that he was the one who said, Im ein sham gora and butlaku. Rebbe Rabchia Chad Hela Ben Alpia Aviv Lekuhuna. And the other one, V'chad Hela Ach Alpia Achiv Levia. So we don't know exactly which Tana, whether it was Rebbe or Rabbi Chia, one of them, when a Kohen Kosher came in front of him, and he testified on someone else that he's his son, this is my son, who was born from my wife, who's a kshera, then based on the edus of the father, we could be mala into kuna and give him a chazaka cheskes kuna. And the other one said that if a Levi kosher comes to us and testifies about someone from the shuk, he's my brother, he was born to the same father and mother as me, he's also a Levi kosher, and hela ach alpi edus achiv lilavia. So this is really amazing to me, because from my childhood, I was always brought up believing that ein davar shebe'erva pachas mishnayim, that you need two Eidim to establish, the status of, let's say, a Levi in this case, or a Kohen. But apparently, Kuhuna Levi are treated now as Isurim, and Eidechadem Isurim. It's not a davar shebe'erva. So Gemara says, if you don't know between Rebbe and Reb Chia who said what, this time I'm going to prove to you that the Rebbe was the one who held ben al pietis aviv lakuna desanya. We learned in the Braysa Reichah. Someone who was muhsak as a Kohen came into Bezdin V'Omar, and he said, this man in a shuk, that you don't know anything about it. He's my son. He's also a Kohen kosher. B'ni zeh v'kohenu. Kohen means he's not a kolol, he's not apostle. His mother's kshera. Is neman lachilo betrua v'eno neman lasio each. Eid echad, in this case, a father testifying on behalf of his own son and identifying his son, is only believed as far as truma is concerned, that his son now, based on the testimony of his father, can eat truma. But as far as marrying him off to an Isha Kshera, we have to be Choshesh. Maybe he's possible. Maybe he's a Mamzer. Maybe he's a Nasir. Until he brings Eidim that he's his Ben. Divrei Rebbe. So we see that Rebbe is the one who holds that Hela Ben Alpi Aviv Lekuhuna, but only as far as Achil is true. Reb Chia turns to Rebbe and he says, how could you give truma and not be malahim for yuchsin? lasio isha mimanavsha. Im atoma mino lachilo b'truma tamino lasio isha. V'mi atoma mino lasio isha lo tamino lecho b'truma. So I thought at this point the Gemara is going to say that truma is only d'rabbanan. The Gemara has a better answer. Lo, Rebbe responds to Rabbi Chia's argument, and he says that there is a fundamental difference between lasio isha lecho b'truma. Ani mamino lachilo b'truma shebi yodo lachilo b'truma. Right, the father has truma in his house. He doesn't need edus to prove that his son could eat truma. He just feeds him truma. He's muchsak lakuna. But lasio isha ain't the other lasio isha. The suin doesn't depend on him alone. It's got to get her agreement. And therefore he's not neman on something that's not biyado. In any event, we see clearly from this brisa that Rebbe is the one who says that a father is neman to be made on his son, that he's a kohen kosher in order to eat truma. This time. The Gemara adds, "Umida Rebbe Hela ben Alpi Aviv Kahuna." Therefore, by process of elimination, we could derive that Rebbe Chia Hela Ach Alpi Achiv Lilavia. So it means that Rebbe Chia holds that a father is not believed to be mala his son to the level of truma, of Kohen for truma, but nevertheless, a brother is believed to testify that his brother's a Levi. And Rabbi Chia Maishna ben Dilo, why is it that a father is not believed for his son? It must be carved who Eitzel B'no. Eitzel Aviv. I mean, the Av is a carve to his son. Is Achnami, carve who Eitzel Achiv. Right, a carve is possibly edus, whether it's a father on a son or a brother on his brother. Where's that?
From your thing, because I can't.
Oh, here, take my phone. Where's my phone?
This is your phone. Where do I find it?
Just look for, search for CAL. Just one second. What's up? Where's here? What's up? Right, C.
Well, you sent it to me, so I could use that.
All right, either way. So on the top of Chavav and Aleph, we'll just finish up. And the Gemara answers that Reb Chia was not saying that a person is Neman to testify on his brother that he's a Levi, because again, he's a brother and he's possibly Edus, but rather Mesiach Lefi Tumo. He wasn't telling us a story as Edus, but he was telling us a story, and from the story we understood that this is his brother who's a Levi. And what exactly was the story? He was telling a story. We'll see the story in a second, but he did not have kavanah for edus. The Omar Zechurani, I remember when I was a child, I was piggybacked on my father's shoulders. They took me out of the school that I was studying in order to bring me to the mikvah. If she tunis kuntantis biluni, and why? Lecho b'truma le'er. So that's what we call a tful yom, who during the day can go to the mikvah, and then at night he's allowed b'erev shemesh to eat truma. For Reb Chia Misayimba, notice he would add a little bit to the story. The chaveri b'deilin mimen, and my friends in school, my schoolmates, would be poresh mimen. I brought food, a sandwich from my house, and it was truma, and they didn't want to touch my food because if my food is truma, they might be mitami the truma. Vaykarnosi Yochanan ochel chalas velu Rebbe lekahuna alpiv. So even though a person is not nemon to be made on himself, but if it's Masechet Lefi Tumo, then he's believed even on himself. So what's Yochanan Ochel Chalos? Hainu Chala, Hamufreshes Mina Isa, Vinitenis Lekohen. In other words, since they called me by this name of Yochanan Ochel Chalos, it means that I'm a Kohen. So this is all part of the story that he told Masechet Lefi Tumo. Okay, then, so this is where we'll stop. And in Mitzvah Hashem, I'll finish Chavav and Chav Zayin, and we nether on Sunday we'll start Chav Ches at 8 o'clock. Okay, then? So have a good Shabbos.